It's in the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I'm back, and here we are. We're going to be talking about it, and I'm joined with my brother, Jacob. Jacob, please say hi.
Is the mic working?
Yeah, I think so. I think I hear it. I hope I hear it good. So, I want to talk about Guardians of the Galaxy, all of it, in leading up to everything. What year is it now? 2023? And the first Guardians of the Galaxy came out in 2014, almost 10 years ago. And now it's finally wrapped up. James Gunn, director, writer, soon to be DC head person,
Lore master.
Horror master?
Lore master.
Lore master. Yeah, DC lore master, basically. Because, Kevin Feige, for Marvel, he does a lot of, he does both jobs. He does the organizing of everything and also the business stuff of, saying what does, all the boring business stuff nobody wants to deal with. James Gunn, he's teamed up with Peter Safran, who helped with him for the Suicide Squad, and Peter Safran also produces all the DC movies over there. And Peter Safran's going to do the business stuff, and James Gunn is going to be running the creative of the DC universe from this point forward. So, the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 acts as his, kind of almost his goodbye to everything Marvel. And I highly doubt he'll do anything for Marvel again, because it's conflict of interest, probably not a thing. And why is that? So, I want to start there first. I want to start with the fact that James Gunn, he started off way back in the day as a small, strange writer. He worked for this film company called Troma, and they made like the Toxic Avenger and a bunch of weird, I don't even want to say B-movie horror movies. They're like Z-movie horror movies. A bunch of just wacky, crazy, strange movies. Then he moved on. He made Slither. That was his first film. And then after that, Super. And after Super, he got Guardians of the Galaxy, and people were like, why are you getting this guy who's so strange and weird and pretty dark to work on a movie for kids? Well, granted, he did write the first two Scooby-Doo movies also way back in 2002, whenever the first one came out, and then the second one, whatever year that came out. But, yes. So, that all happened. First Guardians movie comes out. Crazy success. I want to start here for a second. Jacob, how you feel about the first Guardians movie? And also, what did you think about it before you saw it? And what do you think about it now, after all this time?
What do you mean before I saw it?
Like, what were your expectations?
Nothing.
I had no expectations. Well, I was excited because I heard about the premise. I like the idea of why, a person in space with two aliens and a raccoon and a tree. And I thought, that seems pretty weird. Nobody knew what it was. And really, this Guardians team that we know of is only based off a very small run of the comics from 2008-ish, where it has Star-Lord, Gamora, and all that. And that was not really, it didn't blow up anything. And it's kind of strange to start the outer spaceness and weirdness of Marvel and say, okay, well, I know exactly who's going to do it, the Guardians of the Galaxy. And now, they're all iconic, big-time superheroes. Like, you'll see Guardians of the Galaxy merchandise next to, like, a Spider-Man and an Iron Man and a Captain America. And it's like, even still, seeing that next to each other is still strange to this day for me a little bit.
In a similar way that a lot of casual MCU fans who didn't know anything about the comics probably overestimate how popular Iron Man was before it was a movie.
Mm-hmm.
People probably overestimate what the Guardians were to Marvel as a property before there was a Guardians movie. Because now there's a game, now they're in, if there's a Lego Marvel superheroes, they're going to be in it.
Mm-hmm.
People probably think the Guardians are talked about and regarded in the comics the way the Avengers are, when that was not the case at all before.
Exactly. And it's just so, it's interesting also now, because if you look at the comic books now, they looked a certain way before James Gunn got his hands on it, and then after that, everything in the comics and the cartoons and the Lego shows and everything It's just molding itself to be more like how James Gunn made it in the movies, because that's what people know and that's what people understand. That's how you get people to buy comics and watch their cartoons and stuff. So it's interesting. He really made this team his own style and his own aesthetic, and they're all a bunch of Han Solos in a team, and it's in space, and it's awesome. And then he does Guardians 2, got a little bit weaker of a feedback, but still pretty good, made lots of money. Then the Avengers movies happened, and those made lots of money. And then James Gunn gets fired for some tweets he had made 10 years before he worked on Guardians that he apologized for 5-ish years before he even technically got hired to do Guardians. Well, maybe not 5 years. It's a little exaggeration. That's like maybe 3 years. Probably 3 years. That makes sense. And that caused a scuffle. People were like, well, how are they going to do another Guardians movie? How are they going to do the third Guardians movie without James Gunn? There's a lot of talk of like, well, maybe they should keep the script, but then if they keep the script, his name's going to be on the movie, so why not just let him direct it? And then the whole cast was like, I mean, well, we're contractually obligated to do a movie if he's not in it, but if he's not in it, we're all going to be very bad and hate it the whole time. And it was up in the air for a long while. Meanwhile, Warner Brothers, they see this opportunity. They're like, they just dropped James Gunn. Everybody says he seems like a nice guy, so we better get him on something. And he does. He agrees to do The Suicide Squad. And right before he starts shooting The Suicide Squad, before he starts even shooting it, Disney eventually comes back and they're like, James Gunn, will you come back and do Guardians 3? And he's like, I will, after I do The Suicide Squad. So he took... getting canceled from tweets they already apologized for from Disney, got fired, and then he took that, made The Suicide Squad. Now he's got one film in the DC universe and a TV show with Peacemaker, and then he says, all right, I'll do that, and then I'll do Guardians 3. And then he does Guardians 3. And Guardians 3 was supposed to come out 3 years ago, in 2020, which even then, if it was supposed to come out around that time, it would not have come out that time, because... they would have waited to put it out in the theater. So he took being canceled to coming back and being the showrunner of the DC universe. That stuff, I'll get to that stuff. I guess we'll get to that now because then we'll talk about the movie. So DC was doing Warner Brothers in general, Warner Brothers, period, has been going crazy these last couple of years. Everything has been going nuts. Stuff with HBO Max and how they've been releasing their films straight to HBO Max over COVID. That was crazy. Discovery bought Warner Brothers, and that shifted everything. DC was flailing, and they were like, we need somebody to tell us what to do. And James Gunn saw that opportunity. He was like, I'll do everything. And they were like, really? And he was like, yeah. And so now James Gunn, he's going to be running the entire DC universe after The Flash, basically. I mean, he's worked a little bit on The Flash, really just to figure out how to get the whole Ezra Miller situation figured out. That's a whole nother can of worms I'm not getting into. But after The Flash and after the next Aquaman movie, which I don't think anybody's going to see, prove me wrong. After that, the next movie that comes out after that, that's a DC project, will be from his direction. Like, it'll be the beginnings of the new start of the DCU. This is what he's calling it, the DCU, not the DCEU. That was Zack Snyder. It's a DCU, DC Universe. Yeah. But that's not the point. The point is, back when he was fired, I was very upset because I was like, what's going to happen with the Guardians of the Galaxy? The whole point of the Guardians of the Galaxy, their whole thing is like, they're a bunch of scrappy losers who decided to make better of themselves and be better. And the idea of him being canceled over tweets that he did apologize for before the first movie, that you can even go back and see the articles of him apologizing for it, which obviously was a structured move, blah, 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 whatever. Doesn't matter, he did. And obviously the message of each of the Guardians movies lean into the fact that, yeah, maybe he wasn't always the best person in life in general. Maybe he had a sick sense of humor at a time, but he's always working to be better, and that's what these movies are about. It's true. Essentially, it's the chance for the Guardians to learn how to be better in life and choose to put others ahead of themselves. So, Guardians 1 comes out, big hit, and people are surprised, what the heck? And then Guardians Volume 2 comes out, a little more somber. I mean, people were crazy. They were all excited, but the critics were a little less enthusiastic about that movie. And when we came out the theater, the first time we saw it, I was like, I don't know what people are saying. I think that's better than the first movie. What do you think? Do you think it's better than the first movie?
I don't know.
You don't know? Well, I think so, in some ways. It's hard to say now, especially with all three of them out. It's like, well, sometimes you gotta pick your poison. The first one is more of a smash, grab, dash, let's go do these things. Well, not really, but like things happen very quickly in that movie. It's like, this thing happens, now this thing happens, blah, blah, blah. Whereas in Guardians Volume 2, it's way more leaned back. It's like, let's sit and look at these trees for a second and talk about why we have Big Daddy issues, or why my sister doesn't love me, or I got my crew killed, all this sort of stuff. And then towards the end of it, it's like a 2-hour plus movie, obviously, but towards the last 30 to 45 minutes, you've had so much setup that when things are really hitting the fan, it's like boom, 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 and then next thing you know, spoilers for Guardians 2, Yondu's dying, and you're like, oh my god, and you're crying, oh my god, and then they have the Ravager funeral, and Kraglin's like, yeah, and you're like, and then Rocket's sitting there having an existential crisis, like, man, Yondu was a literal trash bag. He was a villain of the first movie, and then after he sees what his sacrifice led to, and how much people came through and came out to support him for his Ravager funeral, the last shot of Guardians 2 is Rocket looking up at the beautiful fireworks with tears in his eyes. That one song. And, it's so sad.
Ravager.
Same diff.
You're mixing it with scavenger, and you're saying Ravager. It's a Ravager.
Ravager!
Mm-hmm.
Ravager funeral.
No! You did it again! Ravager, yes.
You're spiking. Quit yelling. Ravager funeral.
Yeah.
Ravager funeral. Jesus. Sorry. Anyway, so yeah. And that when I finished Guardians 2, and when I saw just the last shot of that, when Rocket said that crying, I was like, oh my god. And then I figured that was the best one. And for folks that don't know, in my top 10, there might be other superhero movie. But when I saw the first Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 1, I was like, that's the best movie ever made. That, just no doubt about it. I saw that movie. That was the first movie I think I saw twice. Yeah, it was. It was the first movie I saw twice in theaters. I was like, I saw it the first time, and then days and days after that, I was just thinking about it. And I was like, Jacob, I don't know. I think I might have to see it, but I think that was the best movie ever made. And then I saw it again, and I was like, yeah, that's my favorite movie of all time. And it was like, it took a while, because my favorite movie before that was 127 Hours, and that was like 4 years prior. And I had another one before that was way earlier than that, but I also watched less movies because I was younger. Then when I saw Volume 2, I was like, I mean, that's better than the first one. That's better than Volume 1. I guess Volume 2 is my favorite movie of all time. And now, Volume 3, I've seen it twice also. Actually seen it 3 times, probably. And I think, yeah, Volume 3. It's the best movie of all time. Now, for me, anyway, best movie of all time, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. It's better than the second one, better than the first one, and the reason why I say this, because Jacob put it in the best way possible. He said like this, he told me, well, of course, it's the first movie and the second movie smushed together, in a way. It has like the similar structure of the first movie, but the same emotional impacts of the second movie, and that's just the one great souffle of yummy in Volume 3. Would you agree, Jacob? Even though I said you said that to me that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just so dark, that movie. But I don't like it better because it's dark. I actually like it better because you spend so much time. Oh, and let us not forget the holiday special. And I think the holiday special also added a lot of injected care and juice into this movie, because the holiday special, there's no conflict, or really the Guardians themselves are the antagonizers, because in the holiday special, Drax and Mantis go down to Earth. They kidnap Kevin Bacon to bring to Peter Quill to cheer him up because Gamora died in Endgame, or in Infinity War, and Endgame of all that. And that's my one complaint about this, is the convoluted nature of having to explain Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame prior to Guardians 3. That's the one complicated thing with it. Like, you can't just watch 1, 2, and 3. I mean, you can, because they literally stopped the movie in Volume 3 to be like, oh yeah, and there was that time when Gamora died, and now we're all sad about it, but Gamora's back, and she's a different person, and all this, blah, blah, blah. It's like, man, it's a little clunky, but you did it. So you could technically watch all 3 without seeing the Avengers movies, but you kind of miss a lot if you don't watch Infinity War and Endgame. But yeah. Also, what do you think about how Peter Quill... Because this is why I think was another issue. Well, after Marvel had fired James Gunn, was how are other people going to treat these characters? Because if you look at Infinity War and Endgame, even though those are both really good movies, really great movies, the Guardians treatment, it's a little mean. Let's think about it. So first you have...
I disagree.
How? Why?
You only mean one thing, really, right?
No, I mean a few things. Oh, but go ahead.
Hit him.
Hit him? Hit all the things? So, I'm thinking of, like, all the things they do to the Guardians. One, Peter Quill. That's obviously the first important thing.
And you know what the thing about that is?
What?
If Thanos had revealed in that scene that he just got back from Earth and he just killed Pepper Potts, Tony would have done the exact same thing.
That's a good point.
Yeah. It wasn't like a character assassination of Star-Lord. It was 100% within character, and it was something that half the people there would have done.
Mm.
Drax would have done it. Drax did do it earlier in the movie. He tried to attack Thanos because he was like, "Oh, I'm getting revenge for my wife and daughter," and he made a bunch of noise. Like literally half the people there would have done the same thing.
You're right. He was like, Thanos.
It was just so happened that Thanos was revealing he killed someone important to Peter instead of someone else that's there.
You're right. If
it had been revealed there, it was like, yeah, I just got back from Earth killing this woman. Pepper Potts showed up. I killed her. Tony, like,
you'd be like, no. And then
what did Tony do at the end of Civil War when he found out that Bucky killed his parents? It's the same thing.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Man. So, I guess that is true.
It's fine. People just people whined about it because they didn't want to think about it. But it did not actually, it was not out of character. It wasn't some terrible character assassination thing.
And also I do give them credit. It was Star-Lord's plan to even get Thanos into that situation anyway. And Mantis was put him to sleep and stuff. So, the Guardians did show some power there. And that was great. But they also do this. They snap away all the Guardians. They all die. Except Rocket, which is cruel. Makes this movie even more cruel.
It's not super cruel. It's kind of cool.
It's cool and cruel. Rocket and Nebula.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Rocket and Nebula, which is cool because they're
even
able
cooler.
to form a bond, and you can see that. You can see that in both the Holiday Special and 3 that Nebula and Rocket have a bond, and that's cool.
Yes.
That's great. And then also, Rocket helped build the Iron Man Infinity Gauntlet, which of course he did. He's the smartest being in the universe when it comes to invention.
Well, yeah. All right, yeah, okay. Look, yes, those are cool things.
So you were completely wrong.
But they all died, and then they effed up their continuity because they killed Gamora, and then they brought another Gamora, so that's complicated. And then when Peter Quill's like, oh, Gamora, he gets kneed in the privates, and it's like supposed to be a joke, like, oh.
Yes, it is a joke, indeed.
And that's messed up. I don't like that.
Is it messed up? What is it? What?
It's mean. Like, they're just making Guardians the joke machines in these movies. Or that movie. Granted, that had a lot going on.
They were in that movie for like 5 minutes.
And then the Guardians get saddled up with Thor for Thor Love and Thunder. And I'm happy that they just dropped them off, basically.
Just shut up. All you ever do is talk about Thor Love and Thunder in an offhanded, memey way of like, oh, that's so bad, right? And then when you actually watch the movie or talk about it, it's like, yeah, that's a fine.
No, there are moments I am very annoyed. Those goats are annoying.
Whatever.
They're annoying. I've never been a fan of the goat memes, like the goat scream meme things. You know, they're always like, ah! You know what I mean?
No.
You don't know those?
There is a video of a goat screaming as far as I'm aware.
That's a meme.
Whatever. There is a video of if there's a video of anything.
People think it's so funny that goats scream.
They sound like humans, yeah. So it is odd and funny, sure.
I don't think it's that funny, and I don't think it's so funny that you get to pepper it in throughout a 2-hour movie.
Like 4 or 5 times.
It's too many. 3. What happened to the rule of 3s?
And it's not a big deal.
It's annoying. And also, there's too many. There is 20 minutes of just jokey fat in Thor. That it's like.
At no point did I feel like the joke concentration was anything unlike Thor Ragnarok. It was.
And that's why I don't like Thor Ragnarok. And that's why I like Thor Love and Thunder more than Thor Ragnarok, because at least what Love and Thunder does have is a few more heavy emotional moments with Jane and just Jane and Gore. Christian Bale, which nobody's going to remember that Christian Bale was in that movie. It's like, god dang it. That was Batman once. Anyway, we digress. And then Guardians 3. This movie is just amazing. It's so amazing. James Gunn pulled a cinematographer from the Suicide Squad and the composer from the Suicide Squad, which my biggest gripe with Guardians Volume 3 is that they don't play enough the da, 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 da. I'll play that later so you guys know what I'm talking about. But the main score theme of the Guardians, that only plays once in Volume 3, whereas in the other 2 movies it plays like every few minutes when anytime they're doing something awesome. But Volume 3 and the Holiday Special, which they shot back to back, but the Holiday Special came out first, they look so real. But whatever they're doing with the camera and the lighting in Volume 3 is, it makes it seem like you're in the room, and Rocket Raccoon looks like a real animal. Like, I watching it all these different times, looking at his snout, looking at his fur, and looking at his hands. Anytime he picks something up, it's like, man, that's a real raccoon that can walk and stuff like a stinking person. That's awesome. It starts out super sad and dark with the Rocket's origin, which is like, oh goodness, it is so sad and dark. And then the High Evolutionary is so mean and annoying. It's like, man, he's mean and annoying. Yeah, I love it. Also, I think Guardians 3 sells on the overarching themes even more. It triple downs on it, which I appreciate. And what I also appreciate is structurally, well, except for Volume 2, but overall, they have the same sort of thing going on in each movie where the villain is some guy who's like, I want to shape the world in my image, or better than my image. I want the world to be how I wish it would be. And then the Guardians be like, well, the world ain't like that. And then they kill that guy. Each time. Even in the third one they don't kill him, but in my headcanon he is dead because he is a jerk. But I appreciate that. It's like, it's weird. It's like they're anti-authority, but they're sort of these weird, like, I don't even know. They're like terror authoritarian peoples. I don't know. What you got on that? I don't know.
Ronan was a terrorist. He was classified as a terrorist by Nova.
Yeah. Ronan was a terrorist. Ego. I mean,
I guess they're all sort of religious fanatics, though. Ronan was a religious fanatic and
right.
a terrorist. Ego religiously worshipped himself.
Right.
And then the High Evolutionary was trying to become a god in a way.
Yeah, because he was like, there is no god. That's why I stepped in. Which is... it's like, shut up. I also love how, because all the villains for the Guardians are so similar, they don't care anymore. They don't care... Or at least they don't care about this type of villain. Maybe if they were to run into a different villain, they'll be like, man, that's a pretty big deal. But even if you count Thanos into that too, also.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like they've only dealt with these people who are extremely powerful.
Yeah, that's the thing I was thinking, is that the Guardians, they deal with bigger and more heinous threats than the Avengers do on average. And there's the one time where they're dealing with the same villain, Thanos. But other than that, like they're dealing with bigger threats.
Exactly. It's fun. It's really funny because, I mean, I wouldn't say Ego. I would say Ego's probably about as strong as Thanos.
I don't know how you're measuring.
Not like physical strength, but
well, maybe even physical strength. Like he was a planet. So
he was a planet.
So very much, maybe he was.
But he was a modest-sized planet.
So he's still a planet.
Yeah. But also, Thanos threw a moon, so he'd have to be bigger than that moon. I guess he would have to be if he was a planet. And plus he had little seeds on every other planet. That's the only reason I also count him as a little bit stronger, because he had all those seeds on all these planets and probably killing a lot of people pretty fast when he was growing those things. The High Evolutionary is probably... it's interesting. He physically is technically the weakest of all of them that the Guardians have fought. Presumably.
Unless you just count his armies like as part of his power.
I mean, yeah, kinda, but he's also the cruelest. I don't think, like, even though Ego was trying, he put a tumor in a person's head. It's pretty cruel, but that, even though he did that, like, in his head, he thought probably that was a merciful way of doing it, like a natural way of killing a person, I guess. And then when he was growing those seeds, those just mowed people down. Whereas the High Evolutionary, he's taking little animals to pieces and making them weird robot monsters. That's another thing in this movie. James Gunn is he's sort of like touching on his old roots with all these weird, strange to look at makeup monsters that are like, if you look at it and think about it for longer than a second, you're like, man, that's terrible what they did. Like, there's Rocket, obviously, and his friends with Teefs, Lila, and Floor. Those are horrific and terrible designs. But even if you look at the henchmen, the War Pig thing, and the weird, I don't even know, like a mole person, it is like, oh my goodness, these designs are so dark and gross and wonderful and violent. This movie is violent. I loved, like, Peter Quill just straight up says, kill them all twice. He says it twice. He's like, let's kill all the people. And even in the second one, he says, let's just kill Ego. It's like, they're down to business. Let's just, like, it's cool. Yeah. Anything else you want to say about Volume 3? You got any more ideas?
I don't know.